welcome everyone. So if I could just get people to sit down and we'll look to get started. So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai. So welcome everyone to session 2.4, Gender, Empowerment and Change. Core Associate Professor Rochelle Stewart-Withers from Massey University's Institute of Development Studies. So I'd just like to welcome everyone to this session. So today we've got 4 fabulous speakers, 3 in person and 1 virtual. In terms of process, what we're going to do is to look sharing the time equally. So we'll have a presenter talk. They'll do that generally for about 12 minutes approximately, and then we'll also look to go to the audience after the presentation for a couple of questions. And then what we should have is a little bit of time at the end of the whole session, because we've got 4 speakers, that we can then go back to the audience, our virtual audience and our in-person audience, to see if there are any more questions, which could be more general in nature in terms of all of the talks, or which could be aimed at a particular speaker. So I'm just going to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is going to be Maggie Piri, speaking on behalf of her team on intra-household gender differences and the association between agency and access to information among crop farmers in Malawi. And so Maggie is a PhD student from Lincoln University. She's an African woman in the agricultural research and development, also known to many of us as a ward. And I'll now hand over to Maggie to commence her talk. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Rochelle. And as mentioned already, my name is Maggie. I'm representing a team of 4 who are my supervisors. This research was done in Malawi, which is in southeast of Africa. So understandably, the role of women in global agriculture is well documented. We are very aware that 43% of the agricultural labor force comes from women, who are contributing 60 to 80% in the least developed countries. And these are making the backbones of the rural economies. And despite that, there are so many vulnerabilities that these women are facing, and these are being exacerbated by so many existing gender gaps across different sectors. And just to give you an idea of Malawi, it's in southeast of Africa with a population of 18 million. 36% of the GDP is coming from agriculture, and we have 80% of women who are involved in the agricultural labor force. That tells us a lot about women's role in agriculture. And at the same time, we're talking about 6 of every 10 households who are at risk of food security, and 37% of under 5 children are stunted. So going on the literature review, we have seen that there's a lot that have been done in defining what empowerment is. According to Naila Kabir, empowerment has been defined in terms of 3 interrelated dimensions, which cut across resources, agency, and achievements. And moving forward, we have seen how other authors have worked so hard to quantify empowerment, which has led to the development of measures of women empowerment in agriculture, which is the WERA. And we have also looked at other authors who have done some research on really defining what empowerment is, whereby others are saying economic empowerment alone does not qualify to say that a woman is empowered. And in terms of access to information, there's research done that when women have joint access to information within their households, then they are more empowered compared to when they have a solo access to information. Now, what motivated me more to look into the case of Malawi? So women in Malawi actually are faced with so many disadvantages, which are ranging from the social cultural perspective, institutional disadvantages, political advantages, and also this is limiting their ownership and control of assets. It's limiting their access to information and other resources, and at the same time, it's also limiting their decision-making powers. I and my team worked on addressing the following research questions by looking at the differences within the households in terms of gender, and also we looked at the extent in which these gender disparities are affecting access to information, and if there are any women-initiated programs that are actually enhancing women's agency or women's power to make decisions. And this conceptual framework helped us to respond to some of to the questions that we have been working on addressing. So we took a look at the macro perspective where institutions are involved, and we focused on both the formal and the informal institutions, whereby we feel these are important because they play a very important influential role in determining what resources could be available for women farmers. And then these resources actually determines what sort of decisions that women can make, whether as individuals or as a team. And this is only done through their access to information. And if women are able to gain these resources and are able to make the decisions at whatever level, then it's translating into their empowerment. And as explained, their institutions are actually like the opportunity structures. The resources are the enabling factors, and agency is the choices that the women are making. This is how we defined empowerment in this research that we carried out. So it's based on the three related dimensions of resources, agency, and achievement. And it was done through a mixed method whereby we conducted a survey in 2 villages of Chimbuka and Chipewa village in Chinji district. It involved 256 households. And out of the 256 households, we had case studies with 6 women. Then we analyzed the results and then formed our interpretations. So the findings, this is more or less about the descriptive. We can see that most of the women are within the age group of 30 to 39 years old. Almost everybody has completed primary education, and the majority are Christian just because of a regional issue. And also moving on the land size, the majority of the participants have less than an acre of land. In terms of agency and access to information, we try to look at the correlations that are there, and then it showed us that everybody has access to information, and there isn't much of differences in terms of their access to information. But then there's a statistical difference that has been noted in women's access to radio or television, and this is also based on which is like a contextualized issue, because having an access to a radio or a television in Malawi, it's not as luxurious as it could be in New Zealand, where everybody can just switch on a radio. To Malawi, having a radio, in rural areas in Malawi, having a radio or television, it's kind of like a privilege. And we also looked at the association between the agency, the access to information, and gender in terms of the types of farmings that these groups are involved in, these households are involved in. So we focused on the food crop production, and we focused on cash crop production. And we found that in terms of decisions that are being made in production of food crop farming and the decisions made in relation to the incomes that are generated from the production of food crops, there is a statistical significance which tells us a lot that there are gender differences, and that's influenced by the differences in the access to information as well. Meanwhile, in the cash crop production and the decision on the cash crop incomes, there isn't much of a difference. And from the case studies, we also learned that social capital is actually of great value, so it's a very important resource. That's telling us that the intangible resources that women have are playing a very crucial role in influencing their access to information. And this is through one of the initiatives that the women have created, which is called like the Village Bank. And we also have noted that financial security is kind of a challenge for women, but the village banks are also helping actually to improve women's access to finances, which actually builds up on their agency on finances. And at the same time, we also have noted that access to information for women is quite of a challenge, even though women will have access to the physical resources. For instance, women would have access to a phone, but to be able to make decisions without proper information on that, it's becoming a challenge because of the cultural barriers that are existing between the households. And in conclusion, we have come to say that both men and women are having limited access to information, but fewer women are noted to be having very few access to radio or television. And at the same time, access to information has proven to enhance women's agency, as we can see evidenced by the p-value of 0.2 in our analysis in terms of the food crop production decisions and the food crop income decision. And at the same time, also from the case studies, we can see that access to information through the resources that are being controlled or that are being determined by the institutions are proving to enhance women's agency. That's helping women to be able to make important decisions. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, so I'll just go and see if there's any questions for you sitting in the virtual space. Yeah, no, stay up here. It'll be fine. No, up here. Yep, great. So that we can, anything there? No, that's okay. So any questions from the floor? If people are a little bit shy, I've got one to start us, but I'll just see what's happening on the floor. Any questions? Yes, Terence. Oh, actually, Terence, do you want to come up here so that we can, the virtual people can actually hear the question? Quickly, run. Yep. Yeah. So we want to make sure that everyone virtually can also hear what's happening. Lovely. Yeah.
Hi, virtual people. I'm Terence. Thank you. That was a really interesting presentation, and I thought your conclusion about the importance of information was really interesting. I was wondering what practical strategies you had for potentially improving people's access or women's access to information. What advice would you give an aid program, for example, which was interested in trying to foster information for women?
Right. Thank you so much. That's a very good question. Maybe I forgot to mention that this is just a part of my PhD work. So there is more that is being done. But as one of the things that I've done in my PhD work also was to get the stakeholders that are involved in policy making in agriculture to kind of like get an idea of how they conceptualize empowerment to be. So from their perspective and what I found from their perspective and what I'm finding from the perspective of the women or the individuals about empowerment, it's actually a different thing altogether. So my proposal, my strategy would be like, there should be kind of like a collaboration from the top to the bottom, so they can work together, they can understand the needs, they can understand the concept and how everybody perceives it, and what would really work best, both for the development programs to achieve their goals, and also for the beneficiaries of the development programs to actually really benefit and make better use of the available resources for them.
Great. Have we got time for another question? Yeah, cool. Okay, quick question. So I saw the little point that you'd made about digital information, and then I saw there was a slide which you, for time-wise, you skipped over as well, where I glimpsed that someone was talking about buying a phone. Yeah. So would you like to tell us a little more about this notion of digital information and maybe some of the gender aspects that sit there?
So that?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so that's just one of the findings from the case studies where we have a woman who, she belongs to this initiative, the Village Banking, but then she doesn't have that agency to say that she can make that proper decision within the home to say that I can use this money to buy a phone and I can be able to use it, properly, and the husband will accept it just like that. So in order for the woman to practice that agency, that she's able to make some savings, she had to create a story to say that their daughter had bought the phone for her because she wanted to have a phone, but the husband might not approve it. So these are some of the issues that we're saying that despite like women having the means to be able to have the resources that could actually enhance their access to information, but then the situation with the households or maybe just the cultures or the norms surrounding it are not allowing them to exercise their usage or their access to information resources. So this is one of the findings that has come out.
Okay, thanks. So that's really nice. And we actually know that, smartphones and things like that have been really pinnacle in actually helping women see prices for stocks or looking at weather reports or knowing different things that they need to do because they actually have that information at their fingertips, don't they? And so really, really important.
Yeah.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much for that. It was a great presentation. Right, everyone, we're going to move on to our second speaker. So our second speaker is Jamie Ogilvie. So Jamie is an Indigenous woman to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and she's a PhD student at Massey University. She's part of a team who have a Royal Marsden Te Rangi Marsden Award for the project Our Game by Our Rules, bringing an Indigenous perspective to sport for development. So Jamie's presentation is entitled Powerlifting, a case study of women's weightlifting in Aotearoa, a mana wahine empowerment analysis. So if we'd like to, big hand of applause for Jamie.
Thank you, Rochelle. Kia ora koutou, ko Jamie Ogilvie tōku ingoa, ko Ngātai ki Tāmaki, rawa ko te aitanga a Māhaki oku iwi. Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Ogilvie. I hail from two iwis, one here in Auckland, which is Ngātai ki Tāmaki, and another one in Gisborne, which is te aitanga a Māhaki. Today I'm presenting my research titled Powerlifting, a case study of women's weightlifting in Aotearoa, a mana wahine analysis. So to give you some context, Māori women often feature in the lower classes of society, and we have some of the poorest social, health, education, and financial indicators. Sport has been argued to be a vehicle for empowerment and for increasing women and girls' development. However, sport for Indigenous peoples raises many questions. So, my master's project was on weightlifting, and I wish to explore weightlifting for Indigenous Māori women to consider the chances weightlifting would have for developing empowerment for Māori women, and I wish to understand more deeply if it did develop empowerment, what kind of empowerment did it develop? So I looked at personal, relational, and collective empowerment, which Maggie spoke about before. And if it did develop empowerment, how did this empowerment align with strengthening mana wahine values? So just like Maggie spoke about before, empowerment has been used to develop women and girls over the last 5 decades, but it's also been thrown around like a buzzword without actual transformation happening. So people just throwing it around without actually knowing what it means. So understanding the different dimensions of empowerment is really important when creating empowerment interventions. I've used 3 dimensions of empowerment, drawing on the work of Jo Rowland and Nalia Kabia. So the first one was personal empowerment, which relates to self-esteem and the way a person feels about themselves. Collective empowerment, which relates to a group coming together to achieve common goals, in this case, a sporting context. And then social empowerment, which relates to overall human health and is really important for health. And the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So traditionally, Māori women, we were strong. We had great leadership skills, and we held positions of power within our community. However, colonisation has had huge implications on where we sit in society. Sport itself offers the opportunity for self-achievement, and it can be a vehicle for transformation, such as empowerment. Weightlifting as a sport is quite a new concept, however, it's rapidly growing. So weightlifting itself as a sport can increase mental and physical health, and it can improve feelings of mastery and capability through feeling strong and powerful. So in turn, that increases personal self-esteem and then personal empowerment. For my research, I used Sue Mason-Jury's Te Whare Tapawhā model, which is a holistic approach to health. So I use this as a model to analyse the data that collected from the weightlifters to see if they were empowered in all aspects of health. And this was also really important for kaupapa Māori principles. So Te Whare Tapawhā is a holistic approach to health, and like the four walls of a house, it represents the four foundations of a person's overall health. For Māori, the environment that the house sits on is also very important. So that sets the foundation that holds up your whare or your house. If either the four walls are unbalanced or the environment is not solid, a person or community can become unbalanced and therefore overall health is impacted. The methodology that I used for this study was pretty standard for a master's project, so I'm going to skip over the finer details of it and just get to the findings. So as I talk to my findings, you'll see some quotes from the wahine in the study just up on the slides, and you can read them as I go through the findings. So all these photos that I've used, they're pictures of the women in the study. The first finding for research question 1 was that all women in the study had increased self-development. So it was found that weightlifting assisted self-development. The women valued their physical health and their muscular strength, their mental health and their well-being. This demonstrated that increased self-confidence and self-awareness helped boost their self-esteem overall. They also spoke about how weightlifting had taught them about other aspects of health, including nutrition, sleep, hydration, and just having a well-balanced lifestyle. It was also found that through increased self-confidence, they found body satisfaction as well. So they were all proud of their bodies, the hard work they had done to gain the physical strength and muscle mass they had, and they had similar whakaaro or thoughts around being happy with the size of their bodies, and they were grateful for what their bodies could do in terms of performance. Still with research question 1, it was found that all subjects in the study had goals of some type, and they showed confidence in their abilities to set and achieve goals. So participating in weightlifting demonstrated that the development of powerful strength made them feel strong mentally, and they were able to set and achieve goals. The wahine in this photo here, from when I collected the data till now, she had a goal to compete internationally, and she's now done that, which is pretty cool. Another finding is that participants had formed collective empowerment through supporting a similar kaupapa of being strong and lifting weights. So in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the strength sport community is really small, and individuals enjoyed being a part of a smaller group where they knew everybody. Connection and belonging was also really important to them, and they felt connected through a common passion of lifting weights and being strong. It was also found that through increased self-confidence, they were able to build better relationships. So this included at work, with friends, and in family situations as well. This brings us to research question 2. It was found that all women in this study wanted to give back to the lifting community in some way or form, and this aligns with the mana wahine value of manaakitanga. So manaakitanga consists of kindness, generosity, caring, and uplifting the mana of other people. So Manaya was a participant in the study, and she recognised that some women felt uncomfortable going to a normal gym, so she created a club called the Wahine Strength Club. And as you can see in this quote here, I started the Wahine Strength Club as a safe place for females to come, for women that were too scared to walk into a gym. Another finding was that participants continued to lift weights as they felt like they were role models to their whānau, and it gave them a sense of authority. So they felt like they were inspiring their children, their mokopuna, grandchildren, and also other people in their communities. So mana wahine acknowledges contributions of women in accordance to Māori culture and society. And this is for the continuance of whakapapa and the guidance of future generations. And the quote here from Tarina says it all. So she said, "My kids love the fact that I'm their strong mama. I wanted my kids and their kids to have something to look back at and be proud of." And then the last finding was a kaupapa of powerful women. So all participants in the study had a variety of achievements that they were proud of. They were self-reliant and they juggled many different things in their lives. This included, they were high achievers at work, academically, as working mothers, business owners, coaches, some held positions on different boards, marae boards, and sporting committees as well. One of the participants stated, "It's very much a mana wahine type of activity, and whatever type of mahi work women weightlifters do, they're out there breaking down barriers and stereotypes." So overall, this project showed that weightlifting can certainly be an empowering process for Māori women. The strength sport community provides a space for women to come together, experience achievements, create friendships, socialise, and enable each other, their whānau, and their communities. However, one thing was missing, that was spiritual connection to the environment. And for Māori, that's very important. As you could see in Te Whare Tapawhā, spiritual connection to the environment is one of the main pillars. So overall, this shows that strength sport can certainly have an empowering process for an individual. However, on a larger scale, it lacks the funding and the resources to fully support the inclusive needs and the holistic needs of Māori women. Kia ora koutou. Thank you for everyone for listening. Not lifting, listening. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, thank you very much for that, Jamie. Well done. So we'll just look and see if there's any questions from the floor there in terms of... Oh, yes, yeah, okay, there, yeah. I'm just trying to think whether I could get you to pop down here, because then it means people can even, the virtual people can see who's asking the question as well. Is that all right? And then also Irene, is that okay? Sorry, guys. Exercise is good for us. Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, firstly. I think from a sport for development perspective, it's really interesting because obviously the context of sport provides for a whole lot of opportunity for our wahine to realise their potential and all the other things you've talked about. I'm just really interested in powerlifting and how it, like, where this development base is coming from, because we've kind of, and I'll speak for myself, played a lot of team sports, netball, rugby, but this is kind of a different trajectory for Māori wahine. So I'm just quite interested in how and why weightlifting
So
has
it seems
become
more individual.
yeah. Just so that's really my. I mean, I understand all of the logic around sport and aspiration and goal setting and commitment and all of that, but yeah, why powerlifting?
Yeah, and so interesting in that, and even Jamie, you may not be able to answer, but we're just seeing this massive growth of Māori and Pacifica people really interested in lifting. Anyway, I'll let you know. Yeah,
My part-time.
Yeah,
Kia ora.
yeah. So, Jamie, do you any ideas there?
Yeah, like there is lots of growth in weightlifting and powerlifting for Māori women. And we've kind of seen that over and women in general.
Yeah.
So over the last kind of, I guess, like 5 years, like we've pretty much matched like at national competitions, we used to be sitting down at 10%, now we're like 50-50 or even more. So there's just heaps of growth in women's weightlifting in general.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, maybe I can help you try and answer some of that, which won't probably really answer the question, Louisa, but I think we've seen this massive movement of, you know, if I think about things like CrossFit, which really kind of appeals to Pacifica and Māori, to the psyche, of Māori and Pacifica people. And then I think, so Jamie's in the lifting space herself, and your journey was moving from CrossFit to the lifting space, which seems more individual, but it was about also wanting to do something more, wasn't it? And we, you know, we haven't really answered your question, but it seems to be this transition from CrossFit, which is all about, I suppose, contesting, you know, masculinity, body shapes, you know, femininity, body shapes, strength, all of that sort of stuff, and then kind of making a transition then into something else. So that can be a question you could find out. Yeah. Yeah, it is a curious question because it does seem quite an individual thing. Yeah, cool. Irene, I'll get you to race down here too, just to ask this question.
Thank you, Irene Brahman Manuel. Just a comment and a good one. I thought the learnings were perfect. I love the way empower was used. And taking the learnings from what you have presented today for Maori Wahine into the ethnic space, because what we see in New Zealand is a lot of ethnic women are not part of many sports. And that's our reality in Auckland. And we are the biggest city of ethnic peoples in New Zealand, but our form of participation and in terms leading to community connectedness kind of falls back. And a lot of times whenever there's sports happening, all the men are there and women are the cheerleaders. So your research is a good one, because I think if we keep moving and if we keep pushing, then we can have more women empower other women. So thank you for that. I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Irene, and a really good point made. You just had to see it, the impact that, you know, the Women's Rugby World Cup has had in terms of the uptake and the way that it's been, I suppose, watched. You know, I certainly heard comments over the last couple of months around people saying, you know, I never watch rugby, but I absolutely watched the Women's Rugby World Cup. So, you know, hopefully we're going to get some real movement in terms of women in sport and a lot more recognition of that, but then also being able to talk to some of our ethnic minorities as well. How do we include those people in the conversations and also in terms of participating? So thanks for that. Great questions and great presentation. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, right, we're about to move on to our third speaker. So our final in-present speaker before we go virtually. So I just want to introduce Phong Phen, who is a PhD student at Massey University Institute of Development Studies as well. So she's originating from Vietnam, and Phong's presentation is titled Women's Economic Empowerment, What Does and Doesn't Work. So I'll turn that over to you to enlighten us. Thank you very much, Phong.
Thank you very much, Rochelle and Kira Koto. My name is Phương Nguyễn, and what I'm going to share with you today is part of my PhD research, which look at engagement with private sector for women economic empowerment. But the part of my presentation is focusing on the approach that women economic empowerment, what does and doesn't work. So I'm going to cover under my presentation that a bit of the research contents and my research methodology, what did I find, and some recommendation. So gender equality as smart economy sounds familiar, right? Investing in women is a smart economy. Or even you can hear as women economic empowerment in the minister's speech today. So that it become like a following the speech of the World Bank president in 2006, which calling like we call investing in women is and gender equality as smart economy. That phrase and it's become the slogan for many development agencies, and then it keep repeatedly in like many development agencies and become the catchy phrase for donor funding programming. Women economic empowerment is considered a pathway to increase efficiency and to promote economic growth in many development programs. And the definition of women economic empowerment commonly share two components: that women having access to skill and resources, and women having power and agency. And in development program, women economic empowerment is often used to refer to the intervention that provides women access to economic resources, productive access, goods and services, job and skills to increase productivity and incomes. Thus, connecting small-scale smallholder women to commercialized production value chains is perceived as a development. Is perceived by development agency as an approach to closing gender equity gaps and empowering women. So within the scope of my study, I examined women economic empowerment in commercialized production value chains in agriculture and tourism. And my research location, I selected that which is in Lao Cai province, which is border with China, which is the poor province in Vietnam, and is a home of 26 ethnic minority groups. And I selected 3 micro and small business under the GREAT program. The GREAT stands for Gender Responsive, Equitable Agriculture and Tourism Program. It's funded by DFAT in Vietnam. That like the first small enterprise is the tea company. They produce tea shanties to export to the European market. or the high end of domestic market. And the benzoin company, benzoin is like the fragrant resin is extracted from like the tree, body tree, and is used in medicine and cosmetic. And the herbal cooperative, they produce traditional herbal bath product from and medicinal essential oils, and that is a special product from a Red Zao ethnic group. So I'm using qualitative methodology, which involve 57 structured in-depth interviews and 5 focus group discussion. And more than 100 people are involved, participated in my study. They are donor, NGO, local government representative, business owner, and their staff, and men and women from the three ethnic minority group who are involved in the program. And in my research, I adopted a conceptual framework which consider women empowerment as the process of change in power relation in others to activate women and men consciousness, so they can assess greater control over the access, to have better access to resources, and then they can raise their voice to challenge the inequitable structure, rules and norms. And I draw from a Skiven power empowerment framework, which examines empowerment in 4 dimensions: economic, psychological, social, and political aspect. So, what did I find? What worked here? I found that just the linkages with the micro and small business, it did create the economic opportunity for the low-income woman. And the micro and small business, they do not require like a high input, value input for the low income women to get involved in their value chains. So in that term, they're quite inclusive because they can involve any woman at any production scale that can participate in their production value chains. And the local embedded and indigenous business, they have the strength in know how about indigenous product, and they have access to niche markets. And then they can also, like an indigenous business like the herbal cooperative, they can not only bring economic opportunity, but they can also provide the opportunity to strengthen their culture, reserving their culture aspect as well, because they help to preserve their indigenous knowledge about producing herbal bath products. So women, when they get involved in, engaged with the production value chains, they do have like some control over the production and income of the crop. We consider in Vietnam as the woman crop. It's like tea, herbal bath and tea crop, which the work involved like manual, repetitive. And when women, they have control over that production and income, they help it does help their financial independence, and they felt improve their self-esteem. They felt like it's a quote from one woman that I felt I'm equal to the other because I have money to cover for our daily expenses. I don't need to ask for my husband for that money. And then I even have money to give to my husband when he doesn't earn anything. So yes, it does work in that term. But it's not always that women engagement in value chains does not always financially benefit and empower women. And the main crop is like the benzoin crop, which is physical, like demands for like a man climbing up to the tree and extract the resin from the tree. Then men likely control over the production and income from that. And also in the large production of the herbal plant, so man is the one who have more control over the production and decision on that. So men in this case, for example, he signed all the contract, and then he said that after signing, I went back to discuss with my wife. The wife must follow her husband. She had no choice as I had already signed. So what happened is because the program, or I think it's typically that many development programs just focus on the top right-hand corner of the Zhao and Keller gender change framework, which focus on like providing women access to resources, and forgot 3 other corners, which is empower, just or enable women just to have better like access to information, like in the Maki presentation, and also the social norm as well. So yes, women still face a lot of barrier and social norms that preventing them from benefiting and empowering them. The power relation within the household, like the 2 examples that I gave, that within the household and within the community as well, the social norm in the community. When I share this, I heard about one of my the presenter from last week 8th conference in Canberra says the Investing in Women initiative also is very big program funded by DFAT. And then they also engaging with the small scale, medium SME, small, medium, and enterprise to empower women. And then the team leader, not the team leader, just the M&E advisor from that program said that they talked with the business owner, and they say that yes, the business owner said that yes, we can change some of the rules make it easy for women, for the female worker in our family, in our factory. But you go out there to fit the community. Because what I found in my research, the community's social norm in the communities strongly influence that women empowerment. So men, for example, like if men depend on, if man doesn't earn enough money and depend on wife, if the wife earn more money, then he humiliated by the community as like clinging to the wife's skirt. Or if women, they just, the norms just form their, shape the woman role as the secondary earner and the caregiver to look after the household. And when women take over the leadership in the family, they face the social discrimination that and humiliate, and they are ashamed for sitting on their husband's head. Because that's one of the quotes that I have from one of our interviewees, Hermon interviewee said that. So yes, there's strong social norms that strongly influence that on women, and the local authority and business as well. So they are like targeting or dealing with household mainly through household head. So that's women, for example, like everything is channeled through household head, which are normally men, and women are receiving information by men, so that are more independent, more depend on men. So the key message that my presentation that I want to send it is that the introduction of economic opportunity can intensify inequality or introduce new type of inequalities to women if the inequality in power relation within the household, within the family, within the community, and the local authority and business have not been addressed. So development agency should not should rethink about their approach to women economic empowerment, not only focusing on providing women access, have better access to productive input, but on individual level, but they need to focus on relational aspect. So women economic empowerment program should not be thought as a solely activity to target individual women, but they should also involve men, including activity, and they should include activity to address social norm as well. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for that, Fong. That was really enlightening, and I think you actually also touch on something that Maggie had highlighted. It's all very well to provide women with a resource, but if women have no ability to utilise or control those resources, that sometimes that stuff can actually make things more complicated for the environment. So look, questions from the floor, and needing to come up here if you want to ask a question. Yeah, so yes, please come up. Means our virtual audience can also see our question.
Thanks so much for that presentation. It was really interesting. I'm from Curtin University, and my work is in Papua New Guinea. A lot of what you were saying I could relate to, very similar sorts of things going on there, particularly around gendered crops, and how when, you know, there's this narrative that, you know, it's growing food is the women's role, but when it becomes big business, it's suddenly men's work.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing I'm thinking about is around participatory development, you know, what we call participatory development projects. And I think we all agree that, you know, projects that are owned by the community are more likely to be successful and sustainable. But how do we look at those power dynamics within that community that can drive inequitable outcomes for women in particular? I hope that makes sense.
Can I clarify? Is that a comment or the question?
That was a question around, well, how, it's a bit of a comment, but also a question around how do we, you know, community-owned projects, you know, if we think that that's kind of the end goal, it's not necessarily recognising power dynamics within the community. And if we're working with those development projects, how can we better work with those power dynamics, existing power dynamics?
Yeah, that is interesting question. I think that I think the theme that of our conference this year, right? Just like a local-led development. So I think it's important that for the community, and then it's important for the development agencies just to work with the community, because how can you understand? Who can understand better about their social norm, about the way that they can balance manipulate the power relation within the community is better than the community themselves. So that I think that is important, that we need to, like in the programming, that kind of the program, that we need to actually work with the community, get them involved, and then you can understand them better. And then my research, one of the findings is that it's important that the locally embedded business, because if you're talking about engaging with the private sector, then the locally embedded business, they are the one who have they have the minority knowledge. They know how to connect with people, and they are there day to day, so they have better connection. And then it's one of the strong findings from my research is that when I compare with the Benjamin, for example, the director is come from other province, and he's based in the city in Hanoi, just far, like 20 kilometers far from the project site, and he only visited the project site 1 or 2 times a month. And then the connection with the community is very good, and the community themselves, even they sign the contract with the business, but they say when my research assistant, I had to use research assistant because during COVID time, so they share with my research assistant that I'm not sure when I harvest my product, whether I sell it to the business or not. So the connection with the community is very great, because of the community, the business cannot talk to the same the language. And then the business themselves, they said that we from the majority, we from the King ethnic is a majority group. We don't know whether our message is, they got our message, whether they understand what we say. So yes, locally driven is very important.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Fong. All right, guys. So we're now going to look to turn to our virtual speaker. So I'll just see if she comes up. Oh. Talofa Lava. Judy Ann, can you hear us and see us?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you and I see
lovely.
you.
Kia ora. Okay, welcome. Nice to see you. So, look, I'd just like to introduce Judy Ann Alianda Pou'umu from the National University of Samoa, so NUS. So Judy Ann will be talking about gender equality, disability and social inclusion and family farm teams. So I'll just pass over to you, Judy Ann. From what I understand is that we can either see you or just your presentation. Lovely. Take it away when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Hi, kia ora, talofa, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You've already heard what I'm talking about, so I shall just get into my PowerPoint presentation. And the first one we look at is the survival in a high-risk agricultural sector. I should say this before. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. My husband is Samoan. I live here. And I teach English, but I'm interested in this family farm concept. I think it's a good tool to help women. So I'll just look at the problems in the household. And the first one is the imbalance in the family tree with income, chores, expenses between males and females. And in doing some research on this, it's not balanced. It's very male dominated. So there's the family imbalance tree, food insecurity, a high level of dependency, and a lack of JEDC recognition. So the roles, which means that the roles in family and contribution must be recognized. The tools which have been identified to resolve the problem are JEDC, where relevant individuals will contribute to household purses in agriculture, as well as the use of family farm team concept to identify issues and opportunities. The next aspect is the JEDC objectives, and there are three. The beneficiaries, who are the women, people with disabilities, youth, the rural communities, and they're all beneficiaries of the program interventions, and donors have been kind enough to assist in that area. The businesses, they also support businesses for JEDC. For example, we have the cut flower industry and the vanilla industry where women are involved. They are the majority. And the priority is to give JEDC the priorities and goals and to really assist them. The implementation drivers, there are four. The first one is to address the adverse social norms. For example, if there's violence in the family or there are other problems, efforts would be made to address those. The support with access, for example, information technology and other opportunities could involve finances. The third is to strengthen the visibility, the voice, and the representation, so everyone should have a voice, not some and others are excluded. And the inclusivity in business culture where all relevant stakeholders should be included. No one should be left behind. Now we come on to how the family farm works, and there are four modules, and this was taken from the booklet which the trainers used, and the trainers came from overseas to train specially selected people for this training. And the first one was working the family farm team for family goals, which would have been identified. The second was planning the family farm team as a family team. So this involved the households. The third one was feeding the family farm. And the fourth one was communicating and decision-making as a family farm team. Of course, there would be special tools such as the application of the family farm to JETSI, the issues and the opportunities which would have been identified and worked on, the development of opportunities, and of course, there's always the need for monitoring and evaluation of programs. The growth, with regards to the growth, the lessons involved are to see what works, the momentum should be maintained, and commitment is always for improvement. The expectation is that agriculture and households would both be improved in the long run. And that sums up my short presentation. And in conclusion, and on a personal note, as I said before, I teach English, but I'm just involved in this out of interest because I like to cook and I like good food and I have lots of food allergies. So I always want healthy foods. And I hope that when the family farm teams are up and running as they should, they've barely been on the ground for a year and we've had COVID to deal with, so that has put a damper on things a bit. They should be able to contribute to the improvement of food security, alleviation of poverty, and last but not least, not to mention the improvement of the family purses, which are bottomless, I should say. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. And now I can answer the questions if there are any. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Judy, and lovely to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time to zoom in from Samoa. So I'll just kind of do a quick scan, but I'd really like to, so I might get the questions going. We'll have space for a couple of them, but I'd really like to hear more about the concept of the family farm. So could you tell us a little bit about this actual concept? Like when you're talking about the family and you're talking about kind of the farm, what sort of, how is it kind of made up? Who does it include? Are we looking at the extended Ainga size? I'd be just interested to learn a little more if you'd like to share with us.
Well, as I understand it, the whoever the powers that be, so it could be, I was told it could be done on a village level.
Okay.
And it could be I can't say nuclear families, because if it's going to be in rural areas, that would include extended families.
Yes.
But in the urban areas, some of the people I know who are involved in the cut flower industry, as well as the vanilla industry, they are individuals. They live in nuclear family compounds. But it does not necessarily mean that they would only be the ones involved. They might be the front runners, but there would be others working in the background.
Okay.
So on principle, yes, but it's relatively new. As I said, they were just the trainers last year. So I guess at the moment they're trying to identify, they have identified some, but it's not out open into the villages as yet.
Okay.
But it's coming. Okay. And I'm sure, and there are many donors and people who are involved. Farmer Plus, for example, is assisting with that. And it's basically to help families to improve and to include everybody, women, people with disabilities, everyone, social inclusion. Okay. But there's a great emphasis on women, because what I gather is that women do so much work, but really sometimes they're not recognized.
Yeah, no, that's a very common.
And
Yeah.
and in my when I said my abstract, it's clearly says that, you know, it's a male dominated area. So it's trying to get women not to be more visible, but to be more recognized.
Yeah,
There's
lovely.
great emphasis, and people with disabilities. So everyone is included. And of course, nutrition could be, poverty could be improved. So we're hoping to see some improvement there.
Okay, so thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Judy Ann. And so, yeah, really nice to hear about this brand new initiative that's been a little hindered by COVID. We'll probably look forward to hearing some nice results in 2 years' time at the next DevNet, hey? So, challenge for you to come again as well. So I think we've got a question up here. Someone's going to come. Have you got a question? Oh, no, okay. Thought I saw someone moving as well. Any other questions here on the floor? Okay, I might just pose one more, Judy Ann, since we've got you on the Zoom. And so, are there any ideas about? So you talked about persons with disabilities. Are there some ideas about different kind of initiatives for people based on kind of, I suppose, different positionalities? Have they thought through some of that already, or not really? Is it still in that inception stage?
Well, I think that is all in the pipeline.
Okay.
To get all these people involved, because there are groups involved, but maybe they need to get involved in some kind of long-term program for them. Each of these, you know, like probably from my feeling is that it should be from a young child, and to help them so that they would be self-sufficient rather than be depending on the family. But that would, we'd have to wait and see how that plays out.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that, Judy. And well, we look forward to seeing how the family farm teams progress over the next couple of years. And I really appreciate the idea that you've zoomed in. But I think we're coming to the tea break here. And if there's no questions from you to us or us to you, we'll look to close this session.
Thank you. I look forward to the next 2 years.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Judy. All right, guys. So look, you know, we're all going to be going out to have afternoon tea, and so if you had a question for one of our speakers that you felt a little bit shy about asking to the audience, feel free to approach people. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you for a great presentation. Okay, enjoy tea. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it went really, really well. I don't know whose that is.
I've just got it now. I was going to throw it on screen and test that it works.
Okay, lovely. I'll just keep you in the front computer.
Fantastic. Yeah, cool. Perfect. So is there bits and pieces going on between, or is it just an intro and then move to this video?
No, it is intro and then sort of talking,
Cool.
and then there's video.
Visibly reduces wrinkles
Oh,
in
cool.
just 7 days.
Oh, yeah, I'll just say
Try
it's
new Nivea Q10 Anti-Wrinkle Cream,
Yeah.
the #1 anti-age day cream.
Grammarly makes communication at work one click simpler. Whether you're looking for a new
tradition or culture seem to take care the family. Moreover, we consider to have the poor women to join together, especially poor community, their land and
community and what it means to them. So
democracy or the
doing well, all the plan of action that has been taken, we have been doing. The community see that particular, so it is a kind of a value that traditionally here.
It is a cultural sharing, like we all came into different countries and the same province, but we have different way of doing things with the communities.
Known for us here, extending the system, enhancing.
And that first slide just stays up quite a bit until we.
Oh, does it? This first one here?
Yeah. What's the second one? Let's go.
So I'm just going to play it now. And then that's the second one.
Yeah. So that first slide stays up until we start the video, and then
Cool.
yeah.
Perfect.
And
So I'll leave it on that.
Yeah, and then after the video, that will probably go back on as well.
Okay, cool.
That's right.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't believe there's any Zoom on this one. So, should be able to just do Q&A like normal. On previous ones we had people going up to the lectern to get the Q&A because that's where the microphone feed is. We should just be able to run through normally and have the open Q&A session.
Thanks. Awesome. Hey, Martin.
Jared will be here soon, I think, he's just outside. Looks good.
Yeah, Matt's done a great job, right? Here and there.